Last foul that was called on Asia Wilson.
Yeah, you can see Kelsey Mitchell right there gets Wilson in
The WNBA delivered a masterclass in mayhem. Fresh footage and reactions reveal Kelsey Mitchell publicly challenging Asia Wilson and the officials following one of the most egregious, seemingly fixed games you'll ever witness. From cheap fouls to outrageous technicals, Indiana wasn't meant to prevail, yet they defied expectations. Are the Aces in a state of panic now? The Las Vegas Aces entered their home arena anticipating a celebration. They had the MVP trophy gleaming, the media primed to laud them, and the narrative pre-written. Asia Wilson was expected to dominate, Becky Hammon to outmaneuver Indiana, and the referees to sway calls in Vegas's favor. Instead, the evening descended into catastrophe, a complete collapse fueled by overconfidence, sloppy play, and some of the most appalling officiating ever seen in a playoff match.
To talk about this really quick, one of the moments in the game that showed blatant inconsistency, right? And just showed, hey, y'all be paying attention to what y'all want to pay attention to, all right, in the WNBA.
No competent basketball authority would ever deem what transpired to Kelsey Mitchell a technical foul. She absorbs contact on a drive, an arm thrown across her body, completes the play, and rather than receiving the deserved free throws, she's penalized. What? Because the whistle only functioned one way. Because if Wilson is on the court, the rulebook apparently undergoes a revision that established the Knights' pattern, one standard for Indiana, another for Las Vegas. The Aces launched into action with everything but sound basketball, elbows, forearms, flops, you name it. They weren't striving for a clean victory, they were attempting to intimidate. The issue: Indiana remained unflustered. They didn't allow the whistles or the cheap shots to disrupt them. They tightened their play, executed their schemes, and capitalized on every lapse in Vegas's concentration. From the opening tip, it was clear the Fever were undaunted. Kelsey Mitchell immediately attacked the paint relentlessly, forcing the Aces' defense to collapse, then exploiting them when they backed off. Odyssey Sims was a relentless force on both ends, never allowing Chelsea Gray or Jackie Young to settle. Aaliyah Boston and Brianna Turner rotated flawlessly, denying Wilson easy post-ups and forcing her into fadeaways and challenged hooks. The Fever weren't merely surviving, they were dictating the game's tempo. Meanwhile, Vegas appeared shaken. The very team that boasted days prior about being the real Aces suddenly looked bewildered. Every anticipated foul call didn't materialize. Every flop seemed more theatrical than the last. And instead of adapting, they crumbled. Wilson, hours after receiving her MVP trophy, resorted to throwing elbows, berating officials, and forcing shots that clanged off the rim. By game's end, she had shot a dismal 6 for 22 MVP caliber numbers. Far from it. And let's address those fouls.
This is a part of what people are tired of, man. Tired of the inconsistencies and the favoritism that y'all show certain teams with certain jerseys on, man. It's crazy.
Lexi Hull endured a relentless barrage of shoves, elbows, and knocks to the floor all night. Screens were not just illegal, they resembled WWE maneuvers. Players extended hips, leaned shoulders, and jutted out legs to trip her, yet whistle after whistle remained silent. The officials permitted it, but here's the crucial point. Instead of complaining, Hull simply intensified her defense. On every possession, she made Jackie Young's life a torment, forcing her laterally instead of towards the basket. By the final buzzer, Hull's plus-minus was among the highest on the court. Then came the moment that encapsulated the entire mess. Kelsey Mitchell drives to the basket, draws contact from Wilson, finishes the bucket, and abruptly, the referees call a technical. Not on Wilson, not on the Aces, on Mitchell. At that juncture, it transcended absurdity. Even Vegas fans found it unbelievable. That wasn't officiating, it was theatrical. A desperate bid to swing momentum back to the home team. But the scoreboard doesn't lie. Vegas missed free throws. Indiana sank jumpers. Karma arrived faster than the officials could conceal their errors. Mitchell wasn't just scoring, she was making a profound statement. Each basket quieted the Vegas crowd. Every three-pointer transformed their arrogance into dread. By night's end, she commanded the game with 34 points. No excuses, no bailout whistles, just clinical shot-making. Odyssey Sims mirrored that energy with seasoned poise. She decelerated the game when necessary, then accelerated it when Vegas was reeling. Natasha Howard fought as if her career depended on it, cutting off second-chance opportunities and battling bigger players inside.
How does the body feel at this time of the year, given all that you in particular have gone through and are always on the floor?
I'm a little sore, I'm not gonna lie. It's catching up to me, but we're gonna just keep getting warm, keep going out there, try to forget about the pain a little bit. But that's the part of the year. That's everyone. Everyone's playing with a little bit of bumps and bruises, and again, you just kind of forget about that in playoffs.
And Brianna Turner. She compelled Wilson to labor for every single point. No easy catches, no uncontested spins, just persistent physical, disciplined defense. Indiana was expected to falter. 6 players were missing. Caitlin Clark was sidelined. Sophie Cunningham, unavailable. Sydney Colson out, and the bench shallower than ever. Analysts dismissed them pre-game. Commentators declared it a mismatch. Becky Hammon herself asserted that Indiana hadn't yet faced the real aces. Translation: this was supposed to be a facile sweep, but instead of conceding, the Fever triumphed over Vegas. The Aces, conversely, exposed their own fragility. When Wilson isn't rescuing them with 40-point outbursts, they appear directionless. Chelsea Gray had flashes. Jackie Young hit a few shots, but none of it mattered, because Indiana steadfastly refused to break. Once Wilson was benched with foul trouble, Vegas disintegrated. A 3-point game spiraled into a 14-point deficit within minutes. That is not championship basketball. That is dependency. And then there was Becky Hammon's post-game damage control. Questioned about her team's struggles, she dismissed it as merely missed layups and missed opportunities. That wasn't just denial, it was offensively lackadaisical. The Fever outplayed her team in every aspect. They defended with more intensity, executed more cleanly, and shot more effectively. This wasn't bad fortune. It was Indiana being unequivocally superior. But Hammon couldn't concede it. She couldn't admit her MVP was outplayed by Aaliyah Boston. She couldn't acknowledge her veterans were stifled by Lexi Hull and Odyssey Sims. So instead, she sought refuge in cliches. Meanwhile, in the Fever locker room, the atmosphere was markedly different. Kelsey Mitchell spoke plainly. She paid due respect, acknowledging Vegas's talent, but she made it unequivocally clear Indiana came to compete and they weren't going anywhere. Her remarks weren't furious tirades, they were measured, self-assured broadsides. She exposed the absurdity without complaint, precisely detailing how her team battled through dirty play and subpar officiating. And that's what imbued the night with such poetry. Vegas possessed the hardware, the hype, and the headlines. Indiana possessed heart, resilience, and an unwavering refusal to yield. By the game's conclusion, the score illuminated the narrative. Fever 89, Aces 73, on their home court. On MVP night, the supposed juggernaut was humbled by the 6th seed everyone had discounted. Here's the statistic Vegas prefers not to hear. In best-of-5 series, 72% of teams that win Game 1 advance. That means Indiana didn't just win, they fundamentally altered the series odds. They transformed what was intended as a coronation into a crisis. The irony of this entire evening is almost overwhelming. Hours earlier, cameras fixated on A'ja Wilson, beaming with her MVP trophy, the league's golden child, hailed as untouchable, unstoppable, the face of women's basketball. And then within a few hours, she was missing layups, throwing elbows, and imploring officials for assistance against a Fever team missing half its roster. The so-called coronation devolved into a humiliation. Because when you strip away the hype and the PR machinery, what genuinely matters is what occurs on the court. And on the court, the Fever were superior. They were sharper, they were hungrier, and most importantly, they were fearless. Consider Aaliyah Boston. She doesn't command Wilson's spotlight, yet she delivered a defensive masterclass. Wilson shot 6 for 22 from the field because Boston, Turner, and Howard afforded her no quarter. Every post-up was contested. Every spin met with an impenetrable wall. Every fadeaway had a hand in her face. Wilson wasn't dominating, she was flailing. And the contrast couldn't have been starker. Boston carried herself with calm and discipline, while Wilson dissolved into flops and frustration. Then there's Lexi Hull. She may not have filled the stat sheet, but she made Jackie Young's night a misery. Every cut was denied, every jumper challenged, every drive walled off. Her plus 24 plus minus figure spoke volume. Hull was the silent assassin, performing the unglamorous work while Wilson and Vegas clamored for whistles. And if you observed closely, you could discern how profoundly it unnerved the aces. Vegas believed intimidation would prove effective. They thought shoving, jawing, and flopping would dislodge Indiana's rhythm. Instead, it backfired. The Fever thrived on the disrespect. Every hard foul ignited another spark. Every bogus whistle compelled them to intensify their focus even further. By the night's end, Indiana was smiling, while Vegas appeared like the underdog pleading for sympathy. And that is the more significant narrative here. Vegas has been anointed the WNBA's dynasty. Multiple titles, star power, all the global hype. But dynasties don't unravel when a single player has an off night. Dynasties adjust. Dynasties discover alternative paths to victory. What we witnessed was not a dynasty. It was a house of cards reliant on Wilson's individual brilliance. Disrupt her rhythm, and suddenly they are exposed. Meanwhile, Indiana is demonstrating what true team basketball entails. Kelsey Mitchell wasn't solely scoring, she was creating. She found Turner for uncontested buckets. She drew defenders and dished to open shooters. She controlled the tempo with the savvy of a veteran who has yearned for this stage her entire career. Sims provided that steady influence, slowing things when Vegas attempted to lure Indiana into chaos. Howard battled like a warrior in the paint, and even the role players, Shea Petty, Aerial Powers, injected crucial energy at opportune moments. This is precisely why no one desires to face the Fever. They aren't merely hot, they are perilous, because they have nothing to lose and everything to gain. They are playing with abandon, while their opponents are playing with apprehension, and let us not overlook the referees. This game was an officiating catastrophe. Technical fouls distributed indiscriminately, moving screens overlooked, flops rewarded, overt shoves uncalled. It was as if the officials were operating from two disparate rule books, one for Vegas, one for Indiana. But here's the crucial detail. Even amidst all that absurdity, Indiana still prevailed. That's how vastly superior they were. They triumphed not only over the Aces, but over the Stripes as well. And that's what made Kelsey Mitchell's post-game remarks resonate so powerfully. She didn't complain. She didn't weep. She acknowledged Vegas's talent, respected Wilson's accomplishments, but unequivocally stated that Indiana would not retreat. She articulated the truth. Indiana played with greater effort, desired it more, and demonstrated their rightful place. Those words carried significant weight because she had just dropped 34 points on the league's supposedly best defense. Now the pressure has completely shifted. Vegas, the reigning champions, confront the prospect of falling to 0-2 on their own court. That isn't merely pressure, that's outright panic. They have been exposed. Their one-dimensional dependence on Wilson is now glaringly apparent. Their defense is not as formidable as advertised. Their composure is not as steadfast as the media proclaimed. And if Indiana approaches Game 2 with the same intensity, this series could conclude before it even returns to Indianapolis. The most amusing aspect, all the analysts who dismissed Indiana before the series are now scrambling to revise their predictions. Before Game 1, the Fever were deemed insignificant. After Game 1, suddenly everyone wants to extol Indiana's grit and Mitchell's leadership. It's astonishing how swiftly the narrative shifts when reality confronts the so-called experts. But fans comprehend the truth. The Fever have been building towards this moment throughout the entire year. They have endured injuries, disrespect, and constant inquiries about their playoff legitimacy. And now, they are 2 victories away from the finals. 2 wins away. That isn't hype. That isn't luck. That is earned. Vegas, meanwhile, must confront some uncomfortable questions. Can they secure a win if Wilson doesn't deliver a colossal performance? Can Becky Hammon implement adjustments instead of offering excuses? Can their purported depth actually produce when it truly matters? Because at present, all we've witnessed is a team crumbling under duress. Indiana does not face these issues. They possess a clear understanding of their identity. They know Mitchell is the finisher, Boston the anchor, Sims the steadying hand, and the role players provide the spark. They trust each other, they empower each other, and that is precisely why they are flourishing when everyone else anticipated their demise. By the time this series concludes, the Aces might still manage to claw their way back. But regardless of the outcome, Game 1 laid bare the truth. Vegas is not invincible, Wilson is not flawless, and the referees cannot salvage them from everything. Indiana demonstrated that heart, tenacity, and composure can entirely rewrite the script. So to the WNBA, to the fans, to the so-called experts, the message is unequivocal. The Fever are here. They are unafraid. They are not capitulating. And if Vegas doesn't swiftly devise a solution, the dynasty talk will sound utterly foolish when the 6th seed is the one celebrating in the finals. The Aces envisioned an easy path. Instead, Kelsey Mitchell and the Fever invaded their arena, exposed the officials, humiliated A'ja Wilson, and inverted the entire series. Indiana is 2 wins away from shocking the league. If you believe Vegas is finished, hit that like button, subscribe, and share your perspective below.